Hello friends, a very good day to you. Today we will be talking about the drain of wealth theory. And while discussing the drain of wealth theory, we will also look into economic nationalism. And after having discussed economic nationalism, we will also look into the alternative, the nationalist alternative that was provided against the drain of wealth, that is the concept of Swadeshi. Now, before we discuss all of these important topics, let us first take note of a very core concept, a modern concept about the exploitative nature of capitalist economies. Okay, according to Immanuel Wallerstein, the world is divided into cores and peripheries. All right, the world and the economic system, the capitalist economic system of the world has divided the world into cores and peripheries. Of course, this is not a very, it might not be a widely accepted theoretical framework, but it is quite helpful in understanding the exploitative nature, at least of colonial societies and colonial economies. Okay, so we can also look into the world system theory and then extrapolate ideas in order to explicate the British economic exploitation of India. So, as I was saying, in the world system theory propounded by Immanuel Wallerstein, the world is divided into cores and peripheries. The cores which are cores which are technologically developed, more developed, and the production in the core is based upon technological intensity. Okay, however, the peripheries are labor intensive production zone. Okay, and the peripheries also serve as raw material providing zones. Okay, and they also serve as markets, and the relationship between the cores and the peripheries is necessarily unequal relationship. It is based upon exploitation, okay, and unequal development. So development in the core will will be replicated as counter development, that is minus D, in the peripheries. Okay, any kind of industrial or any kind of technological development in the core will be mirrored by counter development in the peripheries. Although the developed technologies might be used in the peripheries itself, okay, technology might be used in the periphery itself, but it is used in such a way as to deprive the periphery of the vitality. Okay, so this is the world system theory, all right, and it is a modern theory. But you see, Indian nationalists had evolved such a theory even before this kind of theories, usually sociological theories, had come about. This theory that was propounded by Dadabhai Naroji, who is also known as the grand old man of India. Dadabhai Naoroji, one of the early nationalist thinkers of India, he had already propounded a theory of the drain of wealth from India. Okay, poverty and un-British rule in India. It was his book in which Dadabhai Naoroji propounded his theory of the drain of wealth from India and the subsequent development of Britain, but underdevelopment of India as far as the resources and as far as industrialization and as far as human growth and human development is concerned. Therefore, along with Dadabhai Naoroji, we will also have to take note of certain very important proponents of this theory. R.C. Dutt is one of them, all right. G.K. Gokhale, M.G. Ranade. So all of these individuals who are also actively involved in the nationalist cause, they are giving us this this very important theory, that is the theory of the drain of wealth from India, and therefore the uneven and unequal development of India. And it also becomes a matter of a nationalist cause because they nationalize this issue. All right, this issue, they say, is man-made, and therefore this issue can be eradicated. This entire situation of poverty and underdevelopment, it can be eradicated, and therefore it becomes a national issue, an issue of importance for the nation and its development. And it is also succinctly and very elaboratively and very eloquently put in such a manner so that it is explicable to all sections of the society, so that every section of Indian society, the masses of Indian society can, you see, understand it and also identify with this problem. Okay, there is no problem as far as identification is concerned, because British you see dominance over India and the economically exploitative nature of British dominance in India is felt by all sections of the society. Therefore, every section of the society, they identify with the idea of drain of wealth. All right, but you see, understanding requires some kind of simplicity, and the drain of wealth theory is a simple theory which is very easy to understand. Therefore, it percolates into the masses of the Indian society, and it provides the necessary vitality which we see in the later Indian nationalist movement. Okay, it is one of the very important theories that inform the critique of British occupation of India. All right, so it is the very important part of the rise of economic nationalism in India. It is a very important part of, you see, national movement, the formation of the national movement and the ideology of the national movement of India. Now, let us understand what the drain of wealth theory really is. How, you know, they explicate the drain of wealth from India. So, it is quite widely understood that in the initial phases of the British trade in India, bullion imported from Britain, all right, and treasure imported into India from Britain was the basis, or was the basis of this trade. Okay, trade in products. The proponents of the drain of wealth theory were critical of three very important aspects of the British economy in India. They were critical of the, you see, resource exploitation. They were also critical of, you see, market formation, the manner in which, you see, India was made a market for foreign goods, all right, and they were also critical of foreign investment. Okay. So, they were critical of resource exploitation, that is the taking away of resources from India, okay, taking away of raw materials from India and then processing these resources into finished products in Britain and then bringing them back to sell it in Indian markets, which have been deliberately created in India by deindustrializing Indian products, okay, by deindustrializing Indian industries and therefore stifling India of indigenous products, okay. Therefore, artificially a market was created in India for produce, you see, made in Britain, for production made in Britain out of Indian resources, Indian raw materials, okay. So, raw materials taken from India, finished in England, brought back again, sold in this artificially created market, okay, and all of this is being done with the help of foreign investment, not indigenous investment, not investment of indigenous capital, but in fact foreign capital, on which again interest has to be paid, okay. So, this foreign capital which is being invested in order to produce goods in India, you say produce the necessary infrastructure in India, you have to pay interest upon it also. Therefore, the entire process of industrialization in India becomes suspect. Okay, the entire process of the industrialization of India under the British, okay, and the introduction of railways too, okay, it becomes suspect in the eyes of the proponents of the drain of wealth theory, because industrialization and railways, the introduction of industrialization and railways were not done in order to benefit the Indian you see masses or the Indian nation, but it was done in such a way that it benefited directly the metropolis, okay, or the metropolitan economy, that is the British economy. Okay. So, railways and industries were you see introduced in India in such a way that it benefited only the metropolitan industry economy, and it created a situation of exploitation. It created the exacerbation of the exploitative nature of the colonial rule in India. Okay. Again, with the rise of finance capitalism, okay, and the use of foreign finance in order to you see institute these changes or introduce industries and railways, as I have already said, the payment of interest, okay, payment of dividends upon foreign investments, all of this is done out of Indian revenues, and all of this is done out of you see the profits from Indian trade, from profits from the trade based out of India, okay, this uneven trade based out of India, and therefore all of this together, okay, leads to a veritable, you see, situation of extreme exploitation within India. All right, and the drain of wealth proponents were also critical of the taxation regime, because you see the burden of taxes fell upon the common peasants, okay, fell upon the common citizens of India, right. The burden of taxes did not fall upon the wealthy middle class or did not fall upon the capitalist classes of India, but it rather fell upon people who were paying land taxes, people who were paying salt taxes, taxes on almost everything, okay, and this was also draining the useful capital out of India. You see, capital which was paid to the British government in the form of taxes could have been used to improve agriculture, could have been used to improve certain aspects of production within India, but it was not done. It was rather taken into Britain, and you see again it used to come back in the form of foreign investment. Okay, again it used to come back into India in the form of foreign investment, on which again there would be interest payable upon it. Therefore, it is a vicious circle that repeats itself, and this circle of exploitation is what was exposed by the economic nationalists. The economic nationalists formed the backbone of the ideological content of early nationalism in India. It is from the economic critique of the British rule in India, from books like the Economic History of India, okay, produced by R.C. Dutt, from books such as you see Dadabhai Naoroji's Un-British Rule in India, okay, Poverty and Un-British Rule in India. From these books, ideological content for early nationalism was derived, and it provided teeth to the early nationalists in order to criticize the British rule in India. All right, and it also provided the basis of the alternative. What is the alternative for this uneven development of India? The alternative, okay, is Swadeshi. The concept of Swadeshi, which we see during the Swadeshi movement in Bengal itself, okay, the early concept of Swadeshi that emerges, is economic in nature, and it also has certain ideological and nationalist you see compound amalgamated within it, but Gandhi would rather later philosophize upon it, and Gandhi would expand this philosophy into a holistic view of one's being within one nation. Okay, one's you see existence within one nation will be subsumed by the idea of philosophy as it is propounded by Gandhi. But during this early phase, Swadeshi means the replacement of, you see, foreign by national. What is foreign will be rejected, and rather in its place the national will be, you see, inculcated, the national will be embraced. All right, and therefore during the Swadeshi movement itself, we see the rise of national education. we see the rise of national enterprise. So why national education and why national enterprise? Because it is a way in which we can counter the economic exploitation first of all, and also the social exploitation of India. How you might ask, what is the social content? You see, education in India, the Anglican education in India that was introduced was done in a way so as it benefits the master race, all right, in India. So as education creates a section of the society who are devoted in serving the machinery of exploitation, that is the British rule in India, so that educated Indian youth or educated Indians could be used in serving the British administrative and also the British capitalist machinery within India. The colonial capitalist machinery, the colonial economy can be served through through English education. But national education on the other hand highlighted the importance of vernacular education. National education on the other hand highlighted the great importance of national education in great importance of vernacular education in building up a sense of nationality, and at the same time in building up a group of people who can later on serve national enterprises, okay, because national enterprises alone, you see, is the alternative to British enterprises. And therefore, in the scheme for national enterprises, we see that during the Swadeshi movement itself, various industries such as soap industries, matchbox industries, okay, tanneries, textile industries, all of these come up, all right, and although they fail to make much greater impact, okay, although the impact suggested was much more, all right, however they fail to make that impact, but they prove that British enterprise, okay, can be countered. They prove that British enterprise can be countered, and that there can be successful national and successful national alternatives also built against the British, so as to be able to counter the exploitation of the British through their economic and trade practices, all right. So this in essence is the nationalist idea, economic nationalist idea of drain of wealth. This is the theory which explicates the drain of Indian wealth from India, and then substitution of the Indian industries by British industries in India, the encroachment of foreign capital into India, all right. So a systematic drain of wealth of India, okay. So this is the unitary theory which explains all of that, and also Swadeshi as a concept emerges, and which concept can be used in order to build up a successful alternative against this exploitative nature. And this idea will later on be refined by Mahatma Gandhi, and also include service to one's neighbor, service to the nation, okay, and subjugation only to national ideas and not British ideas, okay, not subjugation but surrender to national ideas but not British ideas, okay. It would also assume a political content. Political content is already there during the Swadeshi movement, but it will have more philosophical connotations attached to it when Mahatma Gandhi refines the entire idea of Swadeshi and then incorporates it within the greater framework of the modality of satyagraha and protest against the British rule of India. So I hope that all of this is clear to you. I hope that you will be studying hard and working hard. I hope that you will do good. With that, I take your leave. Thank you.